Mount Rushmore. This wonderful slab of rock is one of the most stunning things on Earth. 5,725 feet, showing off some of the most important men in history. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt. Men that shaped this very country, immortalized forever. There's just one thing that can improve it. It needs plankton. It's a pretty common trend line to think of what the Mount Rushmore of a certain topic is. Basically, what's the four most important or iconic things from a certain category? I've seen people on Twitter and YouTube discuss various topics from this. Comic characters, video games, whatever. But I like cartoons, and I'm evil. So, what are the cartoon villain Mount Rushmore? Well, I think it's more fun to break this into several categories before we find the big four. Being the Golden Age, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, adult cartoons, and just kind of other. Also, some rules. No character that originates from non-cartoon mediums, allow ones where the cartoons just infinitely more well-known, like most 80 cartoons are based off toys or comics. There's stuff like Disney movie villains, Eggman, Bowser, Omni-Man, Joker, and so on are excluded. It's too unfair. Also, no characters that redeem themselves, and no characters who are also the main character. This means no Zim or Black Hat. It also means the adult cartoon statement is near impossible. So, let's honor evil figures and deal with Mount Rushmore. Golden Age animation is of course what most people think of when I think of animation. So, what do the dinosaurs give us in terms of villains? Honestly, to how iconic this lineup of shows is, villains-wise, it's lacking. We only got 7 minutes. You're not going to waste time setting up a villain. That's why so many old cartoons use Satan as a villain. Everyone already knows who he is and what his deal is, so you can just bypass the setup. Sadly, I can't put Satan on Mount Rushmore, so let's look through what we can do. Well, 3 of the ones right out of the bat. Obviously, Pete and Bluto are being added to the Rushmore. 2 of the most iconic and recurring villains in all of media, always appearing to just get horrifically messed up by their heroes. Bluto is nearly inseparable from his franchise. It's hard to imagine an episode of the show without a basic setup of Bluto attempts to steal olive oil, he ratios Popeye, Popeye eats spinach and ratios him. Pete is the main villain of the single most iconic piece of animation ever, and has been featured pretty consistently in Mickey media throughout the decades. The other obvious pick is Looney Tunes, but who from it? Well, I think Wile E kind of crosses over with a main character of his shorts, leading Marvin, Sam, and Elmer. Of these 3, Marvin is arguably the most iconic of them overall, but Elmer is super critical for his franchise. He's in several of the most iconic shorts, he's the OG villain, he's part of several of the most well-known catchphrases and jokes. He's easily making the Rushmore. Oh, and Sam kind of exists, I guess. And this is where it gets hard. Well, the general jokes of this era are iconic, as are most of the main characters. The expanded casts aren't as notable. You know Woody Woodpecker and Fix the Cat, but have you heard of Buzz Buzzard and the Professor? Tom off the table because he's the main character, so I'm not entirely sure who to go with. That is, until I did some digging. Now, when the Golden Age ended is very up in the air, but I'm seeing some people say Rocky and Bullwinkle counts. Throw out there and Boris and Natasha to round out the Rushmore. It's kind of a by default thing, but I don't know, they're pretty iconic. They're like the cartoon Team Rocket. Yeah, not every character to make the Rushmore is a strong contender for the final Rushmore, but the other 3 are. Okay, now for 3 years, you click on this video. Cartoon Network has a pretty good place to start, actually. In the comic Super Secret Crisis War, Aku pulls together 3 villains to form an evil team, featuring himself, Mojo Jojo, Vilgax, and Mandark. Now, 2 of these easy additions, Aku and Mojo aren't going anywhere. Not only are they from 2 of CN's most iconic shows, but they're just generally the 2 villains to see brought up from CN when cartoon villains are discussed, even being used alongside other mascots if they're just one of the good guys. That's that Mojo is a go-to villain for CN and most crossover material, and Aku is basically the secondary main character of a Samurai Jack. The closest thing Jack has is Confident. So, yeah, they're staying. The other 2, though, they're not bad choices, but I'm not sure if they're locks. I think Vilgax is the stronger of the 2, so he'll stay as a potential one. But honestly, I'm going to write off Mandark. He's just not notable as rest. Being the main villain of CN's first hit and having a very funny laugh can only get you so far. Well, I know what I would pick if the world was a good place, but for a realistic pick, first thing I considered for the remaining spot was one of CN's modern shows, and there's 4 shows that can claim the title: Adventure Time, Regular Show, Steven Universe, and Gumball. As big as these shows are, most of them aren't going to help us. I pretty much never see anyone discuss Gumball outside of the family, so Robin making it. Steven Universe has some pretty notable antagonists: Spinel, the Diamonds, Peridot, Jasper. They're outnamed himself, so they're all out. And the ones that stay bad aren't particularly of note. Regular Show relies too heavily on one-shot characters to get a nod, and the closest to the main villain is from what's considered the least popular and weakest season. So no anti-pops. For Adventure Time, Ice King, Marcy, and Ordine, of course, so they're out. But then there's the Lich. Objectively, he's making the Rushmore. Why is that? Because back in 2023, CN's social media ran a poll on who their most iconic villain was, and Lich won. Mojo and Aku weren't on the poll, as Mojo was excluded in favor of him, and Aku is listed under Adult Swim now, so they're not on here, by the way. Vilgax and Mandark lost their first rounds as well, but notably it's the characters who don't count for this video, so that's just something of note. As for the rest of the shows, there's nothing super special. Courage will show immediate look too, but while there's a few big villains, People only talk about how scary they are, and not anything about them themselves. I don't think anyone from Screaming Adventures is super big at all besides the main trio. Eddie's brother and the Kanker sisters are not as big as the other guys. Father's only really discussed in the K&D fandom. The average person probably won't know who he is or anything about the show besides the main five. So I guess I'll just go back to Old Reliable. Old Reliable is the hentai face. Yeah, while the guy's reputation may be a little shaky, he's still the big face of the franchise. The playable Punchline Explosion. He's one of the few villains to be in every iteration of the franchise, and it's easy taking the place as Ben's most important and iconic enemy. So he's being locked down as we move on to Nick. Like the last one, Nick has a very good place to start. Nicktoons Unite has the Evil Syndicate. A group of Nicks, Beakus, and Dallas. Plankton, Crocker, Calamitous, and Vlad. Now yeah, obviously Plankton and Crocker are being added. Plankton literally got a movie, dog. He's always shown with other villains and characters. The only cartoon villain, arguably period, that still gets merchandise. He's making it. Crocker's the main villain of the other big Nick show. It was literally so popular he overtook the show, it overtook the original main villain of Vicky. The other two... Literally never seen anyone talk about Calamitous. I love the dude, he's hilarious, but he's not making it. Vlad, honestly, I don't even think he's the most iconic villain for the show. For better or for worse, it's worse. It's Ember. I don't want to add it onto the list, but like, there's a genuine case for it. So I'll bench her for now. Oh, and before we move on, I know there's another Nicktoons game with Evil Syndicate. The problem is that Evil Syndicate freaking sucks. Plankton again, Beautiful Gorgeous, who if Calamitous isn't making it, she's not making it either. Technically that's my favorite Danny Phantom villain, but he's definitely not more popular than Ember or Vlad. Killock, no one cares. And Did, who's even a villain? Oh yeah, obviously Zim doesn't count because he's the main character. As for the other picks, obvious one, Princess of the Fire Nation is taking her seat on the throne. Well, she's not the main villain, she's the most active threat. She got her own novel. She's easily the most popular villain. And like, it's Avatar. It's one of the rare few cartoons that broke the barrier to mainstream. So she's an easy addition. Who's after her? That's hard. I can say who it's not though. It ain't Vexus. When was the last time anyone discussed any character from the show that wasn't Jenny? Literally when Nick All-Stars was announced, I was talking to some people and I said Jenny should be added. And everyone agreed. But then brought up Vexus and I was met with blank stares. She ain't being added. Snotty Boy would be mad funny, but technically he doesn't count, since he appeared in the movie first. Core villains are cheating, so they're all out. Yeah, I guess Ember it is. Nick's got some great villains. Well, this isn't my favorite, it's the most notable. And sadly, Nick doesn't push any non-Plankton villains a lot. So this is our final tally. Okay, so shockingly, Disney does have their own little main group of evil villain rival team thing. The problem is that it sucks. In the Flash game Villains Unite, Doof, Lil Gideon, Hannibal McFist, and Lord Hater all come together to build a portal. And then the heroes need to stop them. Yeah, definitely a weaker lineup than the other two. Not all bad though. Doof is obviously staying. Phineas and Ferb is a flagship show of Disney, and as the years went on, it's clear Doof was the fan favorite. Every season gave him more spotlight. He became the main character of Milo Murphy's Law, got like 3 backdoor pilots and 4 web shows, and is among the most iconic and recognizable characters in recent memory. I know he redeemed himself like 4 times, but again, it's always backtracked. Even the upcoming 5th season seems to be reverting him back. So yeah, he's fine here. Going back to the 4, Gideon, get out! Yeah, obviously Bill Cipher is here. Gideon follows more or less popular affiliation in animation. And Bill was the main reason why. He's the face of the entire mystery. He was so big that the entire revelation of the show was focused all on him. Dude, you can't see a triangle of people making jokes about Bill. He's easily making it. And for the other two, yeah, Hannibal's got no shot. At best, certain communities can recognize Randy, and basically nothing else in the show. He's not making it. Hater! I'm not too sure. Despite the relative obscurity of Wander, it remains a very significant show in Disney fandom, and Hater's arguably the main character of it. He's the one who grows and changes. But, Lord Dominator. Yeah, she's easily the more recognizable of the two. Thanks to her song, and, well, yeah. I'm not at either right now, but they're definitely characters to keep an eye on. I'd argue Phineas and Ferb and Gravity Falls are 2 of the main big 3 of Disney. The other of the 3 being Kim Possible. Draken is pretty popular, but yeah, it's Shigo. There's the obvious reason, but as the show goes on, she gets more attention than Draken. And with the slight resurgence the show has had, Shigo gets all the merchant attention, not Draken. So she's here. And I'll just quickly answer the question you've been screaming at your screen for the last minute. Where's Bellows? And, well, yeah, he's nowhere near as big as you want. For better or for worse, Lumi's the only thing most people know from this show unless you're in the fandom. Heck, even the fandom barely discusses Bellows. He's not here, guys. Similarly, even knowing the obvious problem Andrews redeeming himself, I'd argue that in pretty much every single way, Amphibia is much less popular than Owl House. We can't even discuss the core. DuckTales, of course, is super big, but since it was a comic first, he doesn't qualify. Actually, I want to look into the older shows. They get ignored by the internet at large, but like, there's a reason stuff like Disney Afternoon gets merch while modern shows don't. The thing is, thanks to the more slice of life nature of these shows, they don't really get any villains. Darkwing Duck has a few notable ones, but I'm sorry, being costume and Skullgirls does not mean you're instantly iconic. The only other notable one is Gargoyles. I keep seeing people downplay this show, but like, being the first big, dark, story-based Disney show, one of the rare few cartoons just look at merch. Like, it's a massive show. Xanatos is the main villain, pretty reformed, but Demona, she's a very popular and recognizable character, and has a very dramatic backstory and arc, being one of the deeper characters in Kids Media in the 90s, alongside never redeeming herself. Yeah, honestly, I'm adding her. I don't think any other Disney villain gets close to the podium. Yep, this is Disney lineup. This was nearly impossible. With a no main characters rule, this wiped out 90% of the notable characters in adult animation. Rick, Cartman, Bojack, Shake, Bender, Peter, and Stewie. They're all out. So, who's left? Well, Simpsons? Ever heard of that show? Yeah, Burns is an easy addition, being the main villain of a show that aired for 40 years, and is very consistent in it. He's got a fair share of memes, notably his iconic catchphrase of, excellent. Yeah, he's easily here. There's a clear holy trinity of adult cartoons, with the other two being South Park and Family Guy. South Park is pretty much immediately out when Cartman's off the table, since most villains besides him are one-offs, or based for real people. Family Guy, though, while Carter's arguably the main villain, he's not in Fortnite. Ernie the Giant Chicken has been the face of one of the most iconic jokes in the franchise. Extremely recurring, and like, he's funny, okay, let me have this. This is where it got really hard. At least I thought their pace was hard. But while I wrote off Rick and Morty at first, I kind of forgot how important Evil Morty was. This marked a major turning point in the series. A show seemingly mocking the idea of serialization and lasting consequences screeches to a halt when it is revealed that it has them, instantly lighting the internet on fire. Mortys were just punching bags, but suddenly, we have a mastermind. And combined with his theme being an iconic meme, he easily makes the list. But this is where things got hard. Again. Every particularly popular adult show has been discussed or ruled out. The Monarch from Venture Brothers and Uncle Ruckus from Boondocks definitely have their fans, but I don't think they're super notable enough to be on this list. There's only one character that I can think of that just barely makes it. Don't click off, he's not on the final Rushmore.
Let's begin. I'm gonna make you wish that I'd stayed gone.
Alright, does Alistair count? Yes, he technically started as an internet show, but it was just a pilot. I don't think it's that major. Is he a main character? I mean, he's definitely part of the main ensemble, but he's not a clear face. He's as much as the main character is Plankton and Doof. I don't know anyone's going to debate them, but is he worthy of this? I mean, I'd say so. He's the most iconic character in the show, and yes, this is a huge show. It's renewed for 4 seasons. Pretty much everyone knows about Has-Been now. And Alistair revived almost X-Men. That's huge. Listen, I'm sorry, dog, but I'm not backing down. Alistair's final addition to the adult cartoon Mount Rushmore. Also, his Aries, and that makes me happy. Final qualifying categories are just kind of whatever I couldn't fit into the other ones. The first place we gotta start with 80s shows. For better or for worse, they're what people think of when people think of cartoons alongside the Golden Age. Their villains are just as iconic. There are 6 80 villains that stand above the rest. Skeletor, Megatron, Gargamel, Mumra, Cobra Commander, and Shredder. 3 of these guys are making it on. And the first 2 are very easy. Skeletor has arguably overshared his show's popularity. You can't have a skeleton without people making the jokes or comparisons to Skeletor. He's always one of the most iconic in cartoons. He's basically the cartoon villain. He's on. Shredder joins him too. TMT is easily the biggest of the 6 shows I just said. If you see Claus, he's one of the first you'll think of. The franchise knows how big he is. A little more modern version of the franchise hold him back as a big bomber drop to really get people interested in what's going on. He's a lock. The other 4 all have their arguments. I'm gonna give it to Megatron. Transformers is arguably the second or third biggest of these 6. And when you see Big Grey Robot, you're gonna think of Megatron. Let's be real here. The Bay movies making all the money really helps him. He's also the most consistently relevant alongside Shredder. And he's gay now. Well, okay, not just now, but yeah. I could give it the final slot to another 80s villain, but I want to do some variety. The other slot, though, not sure. My Little Pony was my immediate first thought. But one of the super kind of characters in it are the main 6 in Discord, who reformed. I kind of stumbled over any other iconic cartoons, but I remembered I didn't talk about Hanna-Barbera. It doesn't count as Golden Age, nor is it directly made by CN, so they can only fall here. The problem is, both their shows don't have a real villain. Mr. Slate, Mr. Spacely, and Ranger Smith are all antagonistic, but they're not really evil. 2 villains are fairly well known, but they're not like full characters. Like if you recognize the monster, I challenge you to name any of the people behind the mask. There is one, however. One man who can take the trophy.
My friends call me Dick.
Racing to the final slot is good old Cocknavy himself. There's a reason this guy is always the face of villain in Hanna-Barbera, and why he's somehow still very popular in Japan of all places. And he's just really funny and iconic, and yeah, he's a final slot. This is a weird lineup of characters. And that's our final 24. So who's the final 4? That's 3. Who's the final 4? Who gets to make it onto the big Mount Rushmore? Well, I'll just do what you want to know the most right at the bat. Will any of the big 3 modern cartoon channels get the nod? Well, I love all of them, but there's only one option here. Plankton is our first pick. Like, duh, being the main villain of the most iconic show in the last 30 years is kind of big. Plus, being the main villain of multiple movies, having plenty of memes, so he's always still relevant, even though you no longer watch the show. Yeah, he's an easy addition. Now, I feel like the reason most of these guys are making the final Rushmore pretty obvious, but I do know people are going to ask for Bill, so that's why Bill isn't on here. Yes, he's an iconic character on the internet, but when you go out and touch grass, I don't know how many people will recognize him. Even though the iconic characters in recent memory isn't as great as you think when you're talking about all of animation. Now, the golden age in the 80s are most people think of when they think of animation. For better and mostly for worse. But hey, that's for a different video. But hey, who makes it? We're from the golden age, named Boris and Dasha, duh. The other three all have their arguments, but shockingly, I'm eliminating Pete first. I love him, but he's only a handful of super noble Mickey material. He's really coasting off the franchise. And like, dude, most people don't even know his species. Ludo, I feel like, is more well known when it comes to the big, dumb, bullying classic cartoons, but doesn't really have the same pull and relevancy as Elmer. You know basic plot of Popping episode with Ludo in it, but you don't know anything else. You know everything about Elmer. His catchphrases, his goals, his everything. Dude, his head is in Among Us. He's making it. For the 80s, all 3 are good picks. Whenever I see someone parodying 80s villains, or just villains in general, it's always Skeletor. Voice is the skeleton voice. And he's the only one of the 24 characters to be more iconic than their main character. Besides Alistair, but like, shut up. The final one though, that's hard. I'm eliminating all the adult cartoon characters right here. I'm sorry, but they don't have the same pull and legacy as the other guys. Obviously, Alistair and Evil Morty have no shot, but while Burns and Ernie were iconic, they're really nowhere near the first character you think of when you think of their franchises. Do most people know the chicken's name is Ernie? So that's everyone eliminated. So who's the 4th member? Well, there's one character I didn't mention. One character who can race into the spot. One who can really shine above the rest. One dick we can stick into the slot. That character is, of course, Bill Cipher. Yeah, I lied to you. He's on the Rushmore. YouTube notifies me every time I get a comment, so you can't delete or edit any comments complaining I shelled him. He's here. He's there. He's right there. Frick you. Yeah, while he's only well known on the internet, that's still the freaking internet. Bill represents a massive turning point in animation. The focus to story-based shows and ongoing mysteries. He's basically monopolized triangles and singular eyes. Even Disney has to acknowledge how big he is. So Bill is sitting on the throne of Human Stone as we end the Rushmore with our final 4. Sheldon J. Plankton, Elmer Fudd, Skeletor, and Bill Cipher. The cartoon villain Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore will stand forever. He will die and be forgotten. I wrote this script at a bad point in my life. I probably should have rewrote that final segment, but can't think of a funnier joke to end this video on. So Bazinga.